Every story leaves something behind, a whisper, a shadow. Welcome to the horror archives. Turn down the lights and step carefully, because once a story enters the horror archives, it never truly leaves.
Late night Walmart. There's something about a massive, fluorescent lit store that's nearly empty at 2 or 3 in the morning. The aisles stretch on forever. The music barely reaches you. And sometimes you notice things you really wish you hadn't. These are 5 true stories from people who experienced something deeply wrong during a late-night trip to Walmart. The first story was sent in by a viewer who worked overnight stock in Kentucky. He calls it the cart in aisle 14. It starts with something small, an abandoned shopping cart that shouldn't have been there. But by the end of the night, he wished he'd never touched it. There was a shopping cart in aisle 14 that hadn't moved in over 2 hours. I know because I'd passed it 3 times during my shift, and the items inside were exactly the same. A gallon of milk, a box of diapers, and a single red candle. I worked overnight stock at a Walmart in Bowling Green, Kentucky. The store was technically open 24 hours, but after 1 a.m., you could go 30-40 minutes without seeing a single customer. The fluorescent lights buzzed in that way that made everything feel like a waiting room. The floor was always a little too reflective, like the building was watching itself. The first time I passed that cart, around midnight, I didn't think anything of it. People abandon carts all the time. The second time, around 1:15, I noticed the milk was starting to sweat, little beads of condensation running down the plastic, which meant it had been sitting out a while. But the thing that got me was the candle. It was one of those tall religious candles, the kind with a saint printed on the glass. Except this one had no label, just solid red wax in a clear glass sleeve. I mentioned it to Doug, the other overnight stalker, and he shrugged, said to just put the milk back and leave the rest for morning crew. So I grabbed the milk and walked it back to dairy. When I came back to 14 to finish stocking paper towels, the milk was back in the cart. Same cart, same spot, same gallon of milk, freshly cold, no condensation yet, like someone had just pulled it from the cooler. I stood there for a second, looking down both ends of the aisle. Empty. The store music was playing something soft and distant, some song I almost recognized but couldn't name. I left it alone after that. I moved to aisle 9 and tried to focus on work, but around 2:30, I had to cut through 14 again to get to the back. The cart was still there, the milk, the diapers, the candle, but now there was something else. A receipt, folded neatly and placed on top of the diapers. I picked it up. It was from our store, dated that night, time-stamped at 2:22 a.m. But the items listed weren't what was in the cart. The receipt listed duct tape, a tarp, a box of large garbage bags, and a pack of zip ties, purchased with cash. I looked up, and at the far end of the aisle, just barely visible before the turn into seasonal, there was someone standing there, not moving, just standing with their arms at their sides, facing me. They were wearing dark clothes, and I couldn't make out their face because the light above them was out. That section of lights was definitely on earlier. I didn't say anything. I just backed up slowly into aisle 13 and went straight to the back room. I told Doug what happened, and he came out with me to check. The cart was gone. The aisle was empty. The lights were on. But when we checked the security camera for aisle 14, the footage from the last 3 hours was just static. Every other camera in the store was fine. I finished my shift in the back room. The next morning I checked the return bin, and sitting right on top was a red candle in a clear glass sleeve. No receipt, no tag, and it was warm. The next story comes from a cashier in Tulsa. She calls it the woman who paid twice. What started as a mildly confusing transaction turned into something the police got involved in, and something that was never resolved. She came through my register at 2:47 a.m. and paid for her groceries. Then she walked back in through the entrance and bought the exact same items again. I was a cashier at a Walmart in Tulsa, Oklahoma. The overnight shift. Most nights it was dead quiet. Just me and one other cashier, and maybe a self-checkout attendant who spent most of the night on their phone. The store had that hollow, cavernous feeling that big box stores get when they are nearly empty. Every sound carried, You could hear someone drop a can of soup 3 aisles over. The woman came in around 2:40. She was maybe mid-50s, gray hair pulled back, wearing a long brown coat that seemed too heavy for the season. She had a very specific list of items. I remember because she placed them on the belt in a deliberate order: bread, peanut butter, a bag of apples, a jug of water, and a children's toothbrush. She paid cash, exact change, didn't say a word, took her bags and walked out the front door. I watched her leave because there was literally nothing else to look at. Maybe 4 minutes later, she came back in through the entrance. Same coat, same hair, same expression, which was essentially no expression at all. She walked the store, and about 50 minutes later she came back to my register with the exact same items: bread, peanut butter, apples, water, children's toothbrush. Same brands. She placed them on the belt in the same order. I said something like, "Didn't you just come through?" She looked at me and said, very calmly, "He needs 2 of everything." Then she paid, exact change again, and left. I told Marcus, the other cashier, and he thought it was weird, but not that weird. People do strange things at 3 a.m. I mostly agreed, but then about 20 minutes later, I was wiping down the counter, and I looked toward the entrance, and she was standing just inside the doors. Not moving, not shopping, just standing there looking in my direction. Marcus noticed too. He called out to her, asked if she needed help. She didn't respond. She just turned around and walked back outside. We watched the door for a while after that. She didn't come back in. But here's where it gets bad. The next morning, before my shift ended at 7, the morning manager pulled me aside. She asked me if I'd seen anything unusual overnight. I told her about the woman. The manager went pale. She showed me the security footage from the parking lot camera. The woman had walked out after her first purchase and gone to a white van parked in the far corner of the lot. She opened the side door, put the bags in, and then stood outside the van for a full 3 minutes without moving. Then she walked back inside. After the second purchase, same thing. She went to the van, put the bags in, stood there. But this time, before she walked away, you could see a small hand reach out from inside the van and pull the bags further in. The manager called the police. They found the van still in the lot. It was unlocked and empty, but the back seats had been removed, and the floor was covered with a layer of blankets and children's drawings. Dozens of them, all of the same thing. A woman in a brown coat holding hands with a child, standing in front of a large blue rectangle. It took me a second to realize the blue rectangle was a Walmart. No one ever identified the woman. And the child, I don't know. I don't think they found a child. That's what still keeps me up. This next one is from a loss prevention worker in Virginia. He calls it the fitting room voice. And this one has a detail near the end that I haven't been able to stop thinking about since I read the submission. Someone was talking in the fitting room at 3 a.m. and all the stalls were empty. I worked loss prevention at a Walmart supercenter outside of Roanoke, Virginia. Part of my overnight rounds included checking the fitting rooms in the clothing section, which were supposed to be closed and locked after 11 p.m. But the lock on the main door had been broken for weeks, and management hadn't gotten around to fixing it. So every night I'd walk through, make sure no one was sleeping in there or doing anything they shouldn't be. That night I was doing my round at about 3:15. The clothing section was in the back left corner of the store, separated from everything else by tall shelving units full of bedding and towels. It was always quieter back there. The music didn't reach that far. As I got close to the fitting room entrance, I heard a voice, low, monotone, like someone reading aloud from a book. I couldn't make out the words. I figured maybe a customer had wandered back there on their phone. I pushed open the main door, which swung freely since the lock was busted. The voice stopped. There are 6 stalls in that fitting room, 3 on each side of a narrow corridor, with a mirror at the far end. Every single door was open. Every single stall was empty. I checked each one. Nothing. No one. But there was a smell, faint and sour, like old sweat or clothes that had been worn too long without washing. I stood there for a second, looking at myself in the mirror at the end of the corridor. Then the voice started again. It was coming from behind me. No, it was coming from above me, from the ceiling tiles. Someone was in the ceiling. I backed out slowly. I didn't run. I just walked at a steady pace to the asset protection office and radioed the overnight manager. He came with 2 stalkers. We went back to the fitting room together. The voice had stopped by then, but one of the stalkers, a tall kid named Evan, he pointed up. One of the ceiling tiles was slightly displaced, not enough that you'd notice unless you were looking for it, but it was shifted about an inch to the left, and there was a dark gap where it didn't meet the frame. The manager didn't want to deal with it. He said we'd report it in the morning and let day shift handle it. I argued, but he pulled rank. So we locked the fitting room with a chain and padlock from hardware and left. I couldn't let it go. About an hour later, around 4:30, I walked back to that corner of the store with a flashlight. The chain was still on the door. The fitting room was still sealed, but I could hear it again. The voice, and this time I was close enough to make out what it was saying. It was names. Someone up there was just reading a list of names, slowly, clearly, one after another. First and last names. I didn't recognize any of them, but then I heard one I did. It was mine. Full name, first, middle, last, spoken in the same flat, even tone as all the others. I left. I didn't go back to that corner for the rest of the night. In the morning, maintenance checked the ceiling. They found a space up there where someone had been living, apparently. There were food wrappers, water bottles, and a bedroll made of stolen comforters from the shelf below. There was also a notebook. I asked what was in the notebook. The manager told me not to worry about it and that the police were handling it. But Evan told me later that he'd seen it before they took it. He said it was pages and pages of names, written in tiny, careful handwriting. He said my name was in it more than once. The 4th story was sent in by a pickup associate in Mississippi. He calls it the pickup that never loaded. This one involves a curbside order that tried to lure him behind the store to a parking spot that doesn't exist. The order said someone was waiting in parking spot number 7 for a curbside pickup, but spot 7 was behind the store, and we don't have a spot 7. I was a pickup associate at a Walmart in Meridian, Mississippi. The curbside pickup system is simple. Customer orders online, drives to the store, checks in on the app, and we bring the order out. The spots are numbered 1 through 6, clearly painted in the front lot near the grocery entrance. There is no spot 7. There never was. But that night, around 1 in the morning, the system pinged. Order ready for pickup. Customer checked in. Spot 7. I figured it was a glitch. The system had been buggy for weeks, crashing during the day, duplicating orders. I almost ignored it, but the order had a name, a phone number, and an item list. It looked legitimate. One item, a car seat. I called the number. It rang 6 times, and someone picked up but didn't say anything. I could hear breathing and what sounded like an engine idling. I said hello, told them I was from Walmart pickup, asked where they were parked. A voicemail, very calm, said spot 7. Around back. I told him we didn't have a spot 7 and that he should pull around to the front. He said he couldn't. He said the car wouldn't start again if he turned it off, and he was already parked. He said please just bring it around. I should have just told him no, but it was late, I was tired, and the item was a car seat. I figured maybe it was a new parent having a rough night. I grabbed the car seat from the pickup shelf and headed toward the back of the store. The back of our Walmart faces a tree line. There's a service road that wraps around from the main lot, and past the loading docks, there's a gravel area where employees sometimes park when the lot is full. It's not well lit. 2 of the 3 security lights back there had been burned out for months. I came around the corner with the car seat, and there was a vehicle, a dark sedan, backed into the gravel area, running lights off. I couldn't see inside because the windows were tinted, and the one working security light was behind me, putting a glare on the glass. I walked toward it. When I got within about 15 feet, the driver's window rolled down about 3 inches. Not enough to see a face, just a dark gap. The same voice from the phone said put it in the back seat. Something felt wrong. I don't know how to explain it except that every part of my body was telling me not to get closer to that car. I stopped walking. I said I'd leave it on the ground and he could grab it. He said no. He said he needed me to open the door and put it in the back seat. He said it was for his daughter. I looked at the back window, and I could see, just barely, that someone was sitting in the back seat. Not a child, an adult, sitting very still, facing forward. The shape was wrong somehow. The head was tilted, at an angle that didn't look comfortable. I put the car seat down on the gravel and stepped back. I said I was going to get my manager. The voice from the window said don't. Just one word. Don't. And the way he said it, it wasn't a request. I walked backward until I was around the corner of the building, and then I ran. I got inside, told my manager, and he called the police. 2 officers came within 15 minutes. They went around back. The car was gone, but the car seat was still on the gravel where I'd left it, and next to it, placed neatly on the ground, was a child's shoe. One shoe, size 4 toddler, pink with a Velcro strap. The police took it as evidence. They pulled our system records for the order. The name on the account was fake. The phone number was a burner, already disconnected. The car seat from the order had never actually been purchased. It wasn't in our inventory. It wasn't in our system at all. I don't know what they wanted me to walk into that night, but I think about the shape in the back seat a lot. The way the head was tilted, like it wasn't holding itself up. This last story is the one that disturbed me the most out of all the submissions I received for this video. It was sent in by a freight worker in Texas. He calls it the photo kiosk prints. And I'll just say this: if this story is true, and I have no reason to believe it isn't, then someone was in 2 places at once. The photo printing kiosk powered on by itself at 4 in the morning and started printing pictures of the inside of my apartment. I was working freight at a Walmart in Amarillo, Texas. It was a Wednesday, dead quiet, maybe 5 employees in the entire store. The photo center is near the front, between electronics and the registers. It's supposed to be shut down after 10 p.m., and the kiosk screens go dark. No one uses them overnight. There's no reason for them to be on. I was stocking shelves in electronics when I heard the kiosk start up. That mechanical whirring sound it makes when it's processing a print job. I walked over and the screen was lit, cycling through a print queue. There were 43 images in the queue. The first one was already printing. I pulled it from the tray. It was a photo of a kitchen. My apartment's kitchen. The angle was from the doorway looking in, and I could see my coffee mug on the counter, the one with the chipped handle I'd been meaning to replace, my dish towel draped over the oven handle, the magnet on my fridge from Carlsbad Caverns. I stood there trying to make sense of it. I thought maybe I'd somehow sent photos to the wrong printer from my phone, but I hadn't taken pictures of my kitchen. I hadn't used the Walmart photo app in months. The next photo printed. My living room, same angle from the doorway. My couch, my TV, the blanket I'd left bunched up that morning, the PS4 controller on the floor, everything exactly as I'd left it that night before work. The third photo was my hallway, taken from one end, looking toward my bedroom door. The door was open. The light was off inside. I started pulling the photos as fast as they printed. Each one was a different part of my apartment. The bathroom, the closet, the bedroom from the doorway. Then the photos changed. They got closer, close-ups. My toothbrush, the label on my prescription bottle on the nightstand, my work badge sitting on the dresser, my bed, sheets pulled back from when I'd gotten up for my shift. Then there was a photo of my bed from directly above, looking straight down at the mattress, as if someone had been standing over it, or mounted a camera to the ceiling. My hands were shaking. I looked at the kiosk screen. It showed a phone number as the source. I didn't recognize it, but the name on the order was my name, my full name. I called my roommate. He didn't answer. I called again. Nothing. He was supposed to be home. He worked mornings and was always asleep by midnight. The kiosk was still printing. Photo 31 was of my front door, taken from inside my apartment, looking out through the peephole. The fisheye distortion was visible. Someone had pressed a camera to the peephole from the inside. Photo 32 was my roommate's door. Closed. Photo 33 was my roommate's door. Open. Photo 34 was my roommate's room. He was in bed, asleep. The photo was taken from inside his room, standing at the foot of his bed. I could see his face. His mouth was open slightly. The blanket was pulled up to his chest. Photo 35 was closer, taken from right beside him. I could see the pores on his skin. I ran to the office and told the night manager to call the police. I called my roommate over and over. He finally answered on the 8th call, groggy, confused. I told him to lock his door and not open it for anyone. He asked me what was wrong, and I couldn't even explain it. The police went to my apartment. They checked every room, every closet, every window. Nothing, no one was there. No sign of forced entry. Nothing out of place. But here's the thing. When I got home that morning, I checked the front door deadbolt. It was locked. My roommate confirmed he hadn't unlocked it all night. Every window was latched from inside. Whoever took those photos was inside my apartment while my roommate was sleeping. And they left without unlocking or opening a single point of exit. The kiosk printed 43 photos total. I kept them all. The last one, number 43, was a photo of me at work, standing at the kiosk, pulling photos from the tray, taken from somewhere behind me in electronics, between two shelving units. I'm looking down at the photos in the picture. I never heard a shudder. I never heard footsteps. I never saw anyone. I transferred stores the following week. I moved apartments the week after that, and every night before I go to bed, I check every room, every closet, every corner. But I know it doesn't matter. Whoever it was got in and out without leaving a trace. And the last photo proved they were close enough to touch me. I still don't know who sent those photos. The phone number was disconnected by morning. The kiosk logs were wiped clean like the job never existed. The only proof I have is a stack of 43 photos sitting in a shoebox in my closet that I'm too afraid to look at again.
And that's where tonight's file closes, but the archives are far from empty. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe and join us as we uncover more horrors, mysteries, and true crimes hidden in the horror archives. Until next time, keep the lights low, keep listening, because you never know what story we'll uncover next.